So tonight's conversation is going to revolve around visual art. So I just want to first acknowledge that, of course, there are many art forms: architecture, dance, music, and so on. And a lot of the sort of same movements that happen in visual art have happened in those art forms too. And you're going to be able to, I know some of your creators, creatives here, you're going to be able to like just say, oh yeah, I can watch some of these historical movements happen in my own, my own field of expertise. So just kind of think about that as you go. And I'm going to try to be brief because I really want a lot of time, not necessarily for questions. You can certainly ask me questions, but really I'd like to talk about this. We're going to talk about topics of like, is beauty objective or subjective? And things that are like, they're kind of hard, impossible things to talk about at times, and to agree with one another. And we're going to hold different, I'm sure we're going to hold different positions on that. So I would love for us to talk a lot at the end. And also, I'm going to say some things that are wrong, because I'm not a theologian, I'm an artist, and you're going to want to correct me at the end, okay? Because I'm going to get it wrong. All right. As a professional artist, you might say that beauty is my vocation. This is a quote from Pope John Paul II that he wrote in his 1999 letter to artists. Great read. It's worth your time if you've never done it before, especially if you find yourself taken with any amount of creative gift. Super great. And so much of what I'm going to say tonight it's a mixture of Pope John Paul II, Augustine, C.S. Lewis, Roger Scruton, Peter Kreeft, and Jonathan Pageau. So I'm just here to say immediately, none of these ideas are mine, and there's really not one original thought of mine in this. It's a whole bunch of other people who have said awesome things because they're really good at kind of thinking about these things and thinking about the philosophy of aesthetics. So none of this is mine. Okay, check. All right, so beauty is my vocation. But even before we get started, we're going to run into a problem. Beautiful, the word beautiful has come to mean just about anything, and it has been used to describe just about anything, right? So I think it's kind of like the word love. When we think about love, we can say, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. And we can say, I love cycling. And we can say, I love coffee. And we can say, there's even a website called IFL Science. Yes, I'm gonna let you work out that F, okay? Think that through. So clearly, we have love, that we have for family, is totally different than the love we have for maybe for God or for, even though there's some overlap there, but it's slightly different than, say, the love we have for Coca Dolce chocolates. I love chocolates. Or Insane Clown Posse's new album. All right, I had one fan back there. Good. So likewise, beauty gets thrown around a lot too. So the Rocky Mountains are beautiful. And Bernini, his depiction of David, so beautiful. Handel's Messiah, what a beautiful oratorio. Oh my gosh. And then we'll say, the Italian language is beautiful. Can I get it? Were you going to say it?
I was just happy.
But in the Italian language. So what does Mario say?
It's me.
Yes, thank you. Awesome. Okay, so beautiful Italian language, straight out of your mouth. Gorgeous. Thank you. Okay. And then there's a movie called Life is Beautiful. Super depressing, right? And I'm sure you've even heard someone say, this is for the ladies here. So think about the time that someone tried to fix you up with somebody, and you're like, hey, tell me about this guy. and they say, well, he's a really beautiful person. Like, he's a really beautiful person. And I don't think they mean attractive when they say that, right? They don't say something attractive, but he's really beautiful. If that's the case, then beauty obviously isn't about just what we see or hear, but it also describes something, a lot deeper. And I think it can also describe like a mother's unconditional love for her child, the beauty of forgiveness, redemption, restoration, the sharing of a laugh. So I hope we all laugh and have a great time tonight. And human connection, right? This is about connecting with one another in faith and in love. So beauty is just it's varied and it's nuanced. And Augustine saw beauty as something that leads us to God. And he thought that everything in creation, even the things that aren't traditionally considered beautiful, have a kind of beauty because, God has created them. And we're going to kind of put that to the test later. All right, considering everything just mentioned, perhaps we can say that beauty, as described by Pope John Paul II and Saint Augustine and many others, is more than just like a surface level appreciation. Yes, it's certainly like the opening of a flower and the colors in a sunset and the repeated patterns in nature that we see over and over again. But, there's also like the magnificence of the human soul and, wisdom, inner qualities like wisdom and love and so forth. And finally, there's like that supreme example of beholding God and the very source of beauty and beholding Him, perfect and unchanging. That of course, in His essence reflects, is reflected kind of in everything else. So I know I've not said anything surprising yet. Like all of you are like, yep, heard it all before. I'm Catholic. I get it. Yep, you talk about a lot of beauty. It's really important. Yep, reflection of God. Yeah, we already talked about that, Vince. It's not really all that new. But, it was a week ago. I went to the last symphony in the Flint Hills. And was anyone there? Did anyone go? No? Okay. So, but you kind of know what it is? Do I need to describe what happens? It's exactly what it sounds like, a symphony played in the Flint Hills. And so they bring a stage out and, they play. The sun is setting, you've got these beautiful, I get goosebumps when I start thinking about it. The sun's setting, it's just, it's a gorgeous evening. My wife is with me, we're holding hands. They drive cattle across, back behind, it was magnificent in like so many levels. And I even thought, because there's like 6,000 people there or more, and I was kind of looking at everyone here, all kind of seated in lawn chairs, and I was like, this is kind of like the feeding of the 5,000. This would be like how many people would have been on the hillside. And like all those things are kind of flowing through my head. I'm just kind of quietly looking up into the sky. And I was like, wow, I haven't felt this in a bit. I realized even as an artist, I was just really starved for that beauty. So I think beauty has a really unique way of bypassing the intellect and the will, and it can kind of just jump right over the walls we put up. Peter Kreeft puts it really well. He says, deep truth heals your mind, deep goodness heals your will, but deep beauty wounds your heart. And he says, beauty hurts. And that may seem a little strange, maybe, but I think you know what I mean. Like in the late 90s, when I was in college, I had never read Peter Kreeft, and I wasn't really very Christian, and I really didn't know my life path. I didn't have any plans as to what would come next. But my painting instructor and I, we'd look at a painting by Caravaggio, and we would just oh, the light is just, we'd say achingly beautiful. And I'm not sure where that came from, but it just hurts. Beauty just hurts. It's so gorgeous. Just something right here, that feeling was so powerful. So however we try to define it, beauty is this kind of central and essential value in the human life, and it connects us to meaning, truth, sense of the sacred, wonder, awe, it's attractive, right? Beauty draws us in. And it's like inspiring. You know, the word inspiration has to do with like breath, right? We think of breath, and there's all these connections with the Spirit of God as well. All right, so how does it interact with art? That's so like, what is the relationship? And, you know, is there one? And in order to answer that, I think we have to like jump back to the very beginning. So this is a painting by a modern master, Joshua LaRocque. So this is the kind of creation of Adam scene that he painted for the C.S. Lewis Institute. There exists within each of us like that divine spark, right? There, and it, you know, it's from the moment God said, "Let us make humankind in our image," and you know, the Hebrew word for image means a lot of things. It means likeness. It can mean like a phantom or a shade or like a resemblance or even an idol, like an idol you would have put in a temple next to this image. So what do you think that means? Does that mean that like God has 2 eyes, a couple of elbows, 10 toes? From an artist's perspective, I think the word image has to do with creative agency. And you know, this is the caves of Lascaux in France, like 30,000 years old. You know, the people were kind of in the cave and making these images. Some of this is kind of like some of the first known art. So when you take art history, you sort of start here. And that image is a will that can imagine, that can act on, that can bring things into being, that can choose, that can steward the good world, the good things that God has created. You know, because God himself is an artist. And, you know, to be given that freedom to like do so with him and on his behalf is a really beautiful thing. So like chasing beauty, like having that sense of the sacred, you know, and awe has just been a thing that's just, you know, people throughout all of history have just pursued and pursued. And, you know, it's about like taking the raw materials of the world. So, you know, paint is of course made of bits of dirt and soil and precious stones ground up with oil. And, you know, taking these things that are raw from the world and shaping them into something that reflects beauty and wonder. And this is kind of like order out of the chaos and disparate elements formed into meaning. It's just really a kind of a beautiful thing to think about. And the other thing about art is that it's still accessible. And what do I mean by that? Like if someone gives you like a statement and says something, you can sort of accept it or reject it. In some ways, art isn't just that. It's not just a proposition or a proclamation. There's kind of room to explore. And in that way, I think art is very disarming, and it's also charming. And like a transcendent experience kind of takes place and kind of takes you beyond yourself. So like in the light of that like incredible intersection, I think sometimes, especially as Catholics, like looking at art, you'd be like, well, we've already got it. We've got all that stuff in our churches, in our cathedrals, in our art, the things that we hang in our home. It's already there, and I think it's not quite that simple because we can't just say, all right, this image by Caravaggio, the Supper at Emmaus, right? So he's just kind of broken the bread. And there's that one moment where the disciples are like, what? And then, you know, he's gone. It's really easy to be like, well, look, this is beautiful. That's easy. And we don't really give time to other things. So, all right, here he goes, guys. You gotta be honest. I need hands. Everyone's hands gotta go up. All right. Which is more beautiful? The one on the left. Can I get some hands? Or the one on the right? Left first. Hands, please. Okay. All right, good. All right. Okay, and how about this one? The hands, please. Everyone, hands. Okay. So I think a few abstained. So, all right. if you raise your hand for my painting of Mary Magdalene, I don't know if we can hang out anymore. So sorry. This painting on the left is my daughter's painting that she made when she was 2. She was in my studio, and I delight, and this is not exaggeration. I delight in the balance of like mark making and color choice that she made, and like the balance, the rhythmic. Oh, I mean, everything is there. All right, so you're saying no fair. We didn't get a context for that. That's not fair. Okay, all right, let's try this one then. All right, the one on the left and the one on the right. Voting, left, one on the left. Who wants to vote? Yeah, my man in the purple shirt. He has been with me the whole time. I love you. Okay, and then the one on the right. Okay, it's about half and half. Not bad. So this is Cy Twombly's painting called Untitled Lexington. So it's interesting now, right? So is an artist's age a factor in determining what is objectively beautiful? Is like realizing the artist's capability part of it? Like the artist's intent? Does that change kind of how we might think of something as beautiful? And I can't say for sure, but I tend to think that like my daughter's painting is this beautiful manifestation of that divine spark mentioned earlier, but like in its purest form. Pure playing, just simply making to make. And so I have to ask, is that also Cy's motivation too? Because it might be. And so I just have to say, gosh, so is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Is it subjective? Or is there something more? Can we look at something more? So Roger Scruton, he's a late professor of aesthetics, and he believed that beauty involves subjective experience, but it can still be judged objectively based on certain enduring principles. And so tonight, really the goal is just to kind of look at some of those principles and ask ourselves, do they really, can they help us like discover, can we really say, yeah, this is good art, this is objectively beautiful, or does it just not work that way? So let's look at number 1. He talks about form and harmony. And so form and harmony means things like order, proportion, balance. It's the idea that kind of beauty arises when all the parts fit together in the whole, as a unified whole. And as a painter, I call this making a composition. So I'm designing a composition, which I'm starting to work on panel 3 for the Cape and Chapel. And I'm going to start building this composition digitally to present to Ra and kind of the rest of the creative team and say, I'm thinking this is the way I'm feeling it. And so, they may come back and say, well, could you change this? So there'll be some back and forth, which is great. But like building that composition so that it has order, proportion, and balance. And I think sometimes this can be hard to see in a painting. Sometimes it's really obvious, but graphic design is actually one of the best ways. I feel like it's just so evident that it matters. Form and harmony matters so much. So this is a 2010 Gap. They pulled a little switcheroo here, said, all right, no, we're going to start branding with this design right here. And you would think, like, okay, well, it's not. I mean, it still says the thing, got the little, look at that. Oh, that acknowledges the past, this little square. And so, well, this was like a $100 million mistake. Like people, people stopped shopping there. There was like a lot of outrage, like hate, and in like a matter of weeks, they switched back because this was like so design. But I mean, really though, like order, balance, like proportion, like isn't that that is really nice in comparison. This is fine, but like solid, right? It's not just because I'm not like a serif guy or something. For you designers out there, serif? Got funny? Okay, all right. Obviously I use sans for this presentation, so yeah, I'm not totally against it. I'm saying it's just interesting how this happens. Here's one more example. This is from a website called Visme, and they just have like a few things about, like, hey, it sort of matters. Like, how much better is this one here? Simply because they use this sort of central channel to kind of put everything in. And then balance, right? Got the handle, it's like way out there. Well, look what they did. Everything just slightly tilted this way. It's really nice. And I don't know, this is just a great example of how that works. Okay, number 2, meaningful representation. Art is not just self-expression, right? But a call to shared meaning. So especially, I think this is especially so when it conveys spiritual, emotional, moral depth. And Jesus' parables they're like the great example of this, right? Jesus with a deftness that, is so incredible. Like, he talks about these sort of divine realities in a way that we can understand them, but just with the normal physical objects that people were interacting with always. I mean, it's a master class, if we could like talk that way, people would be blown away. If we could take just the things that are happening naturally and talk about these realities, oh man, it's just amazing. So art, I think, needs that same shared language. If it's to have meaning, we need to be kind of talking the same language. And I'm going to say it's really okay to be wary of artwork that is like deliberately anti-aesthetic or is attempting to like be too esoteric or be kind of too disconnected. So we're going to look at some paintings by Willem de Kooning. This is his Woman series. And while subjectively, like, I'm not attracted to this aesthetic, I can appreciate aspects of it if I think about it. So much like Augustine might find beauty like in an old, like, gnarled tree. It's not perfect, symmetrical, but like shows some strength and some resilience. Like, he could also find beauty in like a simple thing like a tool, because it showed, a worn tool. Like, it showed that hands had been on this thing, good work had been done, human labor and care was there. So, like, while my hot take is kind of revulsion, just being honest, the artist's point of view was to be unsettling, which I think he achieved, and we'll talk more about that later. But I think I need to pause as well, like, before I just throw it all out, is pause just for a moment and be like, hey, well, this is, the guy who made it is an image bearer of God. He was probably acting on, some sort of impulse to say, oh, I want to create, I want to do this thing. It might have gotten lost a little bit in the weeds as to, like, there is so many of his reasons why, but like, these paints were in tubes, and before that they were bits of rock, and it came into a thing and became a painting, artwork that, believe it or not, people really love, and it sits in a lot of museums, a lot of the series. They're a big deal, and while that's a little bit hard for me to do, I think I can still see the human labor and the care in it. All right, let's compare this now to a Finnish abstract artist, Ole Kandelin. He was a contemporary of de Kooning, so he was making art at the same time. And this is his Mary and Infant Jesus painting. And in some ways, there's not a whole lot more visual information here, but here's one of those art things we do a lot at our school, is when you squint, if you squint your eyes and you look at both of those, everything gets lost. This is going back to that kind of order, balance, proportion thing. If you squint, everything gets lost here. If you squint, you still see some of these major value forms. Values just means relative light and darkness. It still works in a way that's very nice. And in fact, he's even taking a little bit of tradition. Those of you familiar with your icons, some of the kind of rock features, he's kind of quoting some of the rock features you would see like in an icon. It's very, very nice in a way. So good, so good. Craftsmanship and skill. Here's number 3. Beauty in art requires intentionality and discipline. So a mastery of medium and technique, it just matters. So ask the 81-year-old lady who attempted the 2012 restoration of Behold the Man. God bless her. She tried. Oh my God. Turn away.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. I think people like to go to that place now and take pictures with it. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, all right. And then consider Rembrandt's portraits. So this first one here, he did like 1628, I think. So actually one of my favorite paintings, because I don't know if you can tell, but he used like a palette knife or a sharp edge to pull out the paint to get like some of the like little hairs there. Really nice, very beautiful. And then he just kind of does these his entire life. And you kind of watch his age kind of progression. I feel like I'm right here right now in my life. Maybe the middle guy, but maybe this one too. I don't know. And then yeah. And so this is one of the last few that he made 40 years later. This is like 1668, 1669. Also happens to be the same year that he made Prodigal Son, Return of the Prodigal Son. And like you don't make one of the world's most important paintings, most powerful paintings. And people talk about like entering the room with this thing and weeping or just sitting in front of it for so long. This is one of the most significant artworks ever made. And you don't just make it without mastery. You think about all the portraits that he made, all the work that he made for 40 some years, and then he in some ways finishes his life with this piece. Incredible. Problem is, for many artists, making something beautiful is like, it's not the goal, right? For many artists, like the focus is like novelty over substance, and sometimes that comes at like, oh, I'm starting a revolution, let's write a manifesto, and a lot of times it's like a deconstruction of tradition. But I think like some of the best and most beautiful work actually draws from tradition. We were looking at that abstract Mary with a child, the previous. I mean, it draws on some of those things and does it very well. Same for this. Like these are the modern, at the time, sensibilities of painting, and he's using those to really communicate this very profound story of Christ. So as an art history minor, and this is my personal opinion here, craftsmanship and skill ends in 1917 with Marcel Duchamp's Fountain. You guys have probably seen this before, but basically an art exhibition said, hey, bring art, it can be anything. And he's like, oh, really, anything? So he brings the Fountain, signed R. Mutt. So it may seem like, yeah, it's a sort of a funny joke. However, like a really significant thing happens here because there's a shift, because this is just a ready-made object, right? It's actually a urinal on its side, but it's just a ready-made object. There is no craftsmanship. In fact, there has been a shift from craftsmanship to an idea. So no longer does art have to be anything except an idea. It really challenges the very definition of art. Because this alone can be considered art. And like I said, something really significant is lost, because again, the focus is no longer beauty as the purpose for creating, but we're not asking, am I making something beautiful? Instead, the question is, is this still art? Is this kind of clever, kind of tradition-breaking thing still art? So, so do you think Augustine could have found beauty in the urinal? Out to the room. Anyone? Ready for an argument? Yes or no? Okay.
There's a lot of,
Yeah.
I think yes.
Yeah.
There's a certain sense of relief associated with urinals.
Beautiful, beautiful relief. Well played, sir. Well played. But I think that it's a legitimate question, right? Because you have, somebody made it. Somebody designed the mold that this thing was poured into. It just, yeah. But anyway, I think that brings us to number 4, which I think is very moral seriousness, right? So beauty also has like an elevating function, and like especially on the moral level, like it calls us to care. It calls us to preserve. It calls us to see something beyond ourselves. And beauty, of course, is linked with truth and goodness, which Jose already mentioned, making up the transcendentals. So, and I think even like a very generous application of Augustine's beauty and creation becomes increasingly difficult to justify, especially in the world of art. And I'm not going to go too much into this, but in 1961, yes, this happened, and yes, you need to know French. Okay, who's my French speakers out there? Or close enough, love language speakers.
Death of the artist, right?
What's that?
Isn't that Death of the Artist?
No, I wish. I wish it was Death of the Artist. Something else in a can.
The death of the artist.
S-H-I-T.
Oh,
You got it. Okay, yeah. So, the art world can be like super absurd sometimes. However, in contrast, Kathy Kollwitz, this is her Woman with Dead Child, and it really grasps the concept of like moral seriousness in art. I mean, even the guy who made a can of things, he was being serious. Like he was like, I'm going to stick it to the art world, and I'm going to show you this. But again, that's the tired repetition, just like Duchamp. Duchamp's urinal, Manzione's can, like it's the same tired old thing. However, you have something like this, which was done in the early 1900s. Kathy was the wife of a physician, so she saw like this play out over and over again, the death of young children before many of the great modern miracles we have. And she watched this play out, and she was trying to like kind of capture that personal and collective sorrow that it just reminds us that like beauty is not just mere decoration, but like a moral force, and it resists cynicism. And for some reason, like I just, because I'm an art guy, I get really like goosebumpy. I just look at this foot. I don't know why. Like just really visceral, kind of into the knee pit there. Ugh, man, so good. But it's like human pain with like reverent honesty. All right, last one, number 5, transcendence. And beauty is a transcendent experience. We've kind of already gone over this, and I think everything we've talked about has really done that. And it's pointing to something beyond utility or even just pleasure. And I think great art invites contemplation and reverence. And that's really kind of what it's all about, right? Something that is beyond words, trying to capture, any artist trying to capture something that is beyond words. So I wish I could say that like, that means, Christians are like really good at creating awesome art that is, just hitting all those 5 points powerfully. But all right, I'm gonna let you be the judge whether Christians are doing an okay job, okay? We're gonna be honest with ourselves here. All right. That says mercy, okay?
That's Jason All
right, mercy. Punch you in the face. All right, then there's this one. That's pretty good. Yeah. Who's got the father tat in here? Exactly. Why? I don't know. Okay. All right. And then there's this. What? This is like home invasion Jesus. Why does his face look like that? Why? But why? All right. And then finally, Jesus coming in. How often does it happen to you? Oh, you're going in to shake your friend's hand. Someone sneaks in, gets there first. The handshake intercept. So I've not said any of these artists' names, and I hope to God they never see this, because for them these are serious, unironic artworks, and they want to say something profound in them, and so. Doesn't this painting, it sort of ticks all the boxes, right? It's well executed, it has the craftsmanship thing, There's goodness and truth here, right? Jesus is he's with us. He's kind of in all our interactions and in between. I mean, it's like, so what's this missing? And that's what I'd like to talk about just for a little bit. So why does this not strike like the prodigal son or like some of the other artworks we've looked at tonight? And who would like to take this one? Yeah.
In a sense, it doesn't make you work for it. Like, it doesn't make you think beyond what's there. And it just isn't like gives you, it's like obvious.
Yeah.
It's like self-explanatory in a sense.
Yeah, if you didn't hear that, basically it's like softball, right? Here you go. Little underhand pitch. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? I thought I saw another hand. Yeah.
The message.
The message.
What the message delivering from the painting compared to the prodigal son.
Yeah.
Like
So
this one could be more about politics than the prodigal son, but look at the man's dress and everything.
so you're thinking the message. You're saying the message is totally different. Maybe a slightly less meaningful message in the back there.
I'd say it lacks intentionality.
Intentionality. And what do you mean by that?
Well, simply it's not giving the viewer of the art any sense of anything beyond what's in the actual photo. There's no feeling behind it, gonna kind of bounce off of that, no message to really be had.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So he said like no message, there's nothing more for the viewer other than this immediacy thing you're kind of talking about. That was there one more over here? Yeah.
It almost reminds me, it's like, hey, if you've been binging your favorite Netflix show and you're just watching this, it could be just the next episode of something you're already watching. It's like, it's just another thing.
It feels, I hear you, it feels kind of too commonplace or too,
Favorite 80s, 90s show.
right, and then what happens when all these suit styles go out of style, right? Geez, no. Or their office furniture, right? It's so very specific. Some of these details. How about that laptop, man? That is a brick. Yes, right here.
I think the juxtaposition of like 3380 in 2015 is a little cheesy. And I think the prodigal son has a sense of like Orientalism, which invokes beauty, where this is more invasive and erratic.
So I got you there because it's definitely, you use the word cheesy. Another word like it's really hard to define, but the word kitsch. I think we sort of all understand what kitsch means. Sort of like overly sentimental, sort of a feeling. This really sort of kind of embodies that, and we all kind of, kitsch always makes you like, Another painting of someone walking on the beach in the sunset, or these sort of things that we see a lot of, or like, sorry, Thomas Kincaid, God bless you. When you think about like a Thomas Kincaid like house, little cottage in the woods, glowing light. Sorry if you really love it, but it just has that like that's something Grandma would like, and yeah. So those are great answers, guys. Hold on. So like I was saying, this is a really difficult topic sometimes to navigate, and I think like a good critique for you guys to like give me right now is to say, look, you showed us a bunch of like crazy like examples of on the extremes, really exceptional artwork, really terrible artwork, and so what about like all the stuff in the middle? And so I'm going to try to sum it up with maybe just some questions we can ask ourselves, like when we encounter artwork, that I think could help us. So in light of like the 5 principles we just talked about, I think one of the first questions we could ask is, when we look at artwork, is what is being glorified? And that can mean a lot of different things, but sometimes it's very evident that the artist is sort of glorifying themselves. And what's being celebrated? Sometimes you can really tell. You get a piece of art, like what's being celebrated by this work? What's the intent of the artwork? Is it to encourage? Is it to evoke awe and wonder? Or is it to desecrate? Because, I would argue Jesus didn't quite say this, but he kind of says it, right? Out of the overflow of the heart, the artist creates, right? So what's welling up in oneself that when it comes out, what is there? So what is the spirit of the work? Is there goodness? Is that being celebrated? And even sometimes we may not immediately be able to see it, but can we work at it a little bit? Are people being encouraged by seeing this? Or is it so esoteric that, half the people, I don't get it. Why is a shark pickled in formaldehyde? I don't know, but it is. So is it really helping people? Is more light, I like this one, is more light coming into the world because of this? I think that's a great question. Is more light coming into the world? Because it's crucial to remember that true beauty and goodness are rooted in love, truth, and respect for human dignity. So, and obviously there's no law against true good, right? Excellent, as Paul would say. All right, if beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder, but something that reveals truth, honors goodness, and opens us to the divine, then the act of creating becomes more than just self-expression. It becomes participation. And I think that's really what great art is a participation in something transcendent. And it's kind of a way of saying yes to that God spark, that image that's in each of us. So for those of you who are creators out here, it's no small thing to do what you're doing, and nor is it an easy thing, because we're out in the world, all of us are out in the world, and human souls they're crying out for beauty, and they're crying out for meaning, they're crying out for transcendence, they're crying out for wonder. There's not a lot of wonder anymore, and people are really hungry for something that lifts the spirit rather than just kind of confuses it, and something that offers hope rather than cynicism. So I'm going to close with just a quick psalm, and then this is going to be it. And then you can just ask me all the questions, or even just bring up a point. I would love to hear just a point. If you're I thought about this, and I want to tell you about it. But so this is kind of just a call to action. Lord, send forth your Spirit. Renew the face of the earth. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Because it's kind of crazy raining and stuff, I just brought one original here, but you're welcome to come and check it out in the evening, as you see fit. And two, you don't have to sit in the seat. If you want to get up, grab another drink, grab another snack, just do it. We don't need to, it's informal. But I would love to just kind of hear what you guys are thinking. And I do have some other artworks here as well, but I'll kind of break those out. Once I get a good comment or a question or something, I might show you some more, but I need something. So, who's got a thought, question? It can be really anything. You can ask me anything. Yeah.
How do you put some meaning behind some your drawings? For example, the color behind. What does it mean? Because you talk about meaning behind all these different artworks. How do you do it for you?
Okay. So great question. He asks essentially, how do you put meaning into everything you do? So sometimes, especially, there's a lot of symbolism, especially in Christian art. One of the reasons why, and I might get in trouble with this. So one of the reasons why Mary is depicted in blue is because lapis lazuli was one of the rarest pigments you could get when they started kind of depicting. It was so expensive, and it was so hard to come by that it's you used blue because you were saying we venerate this person, and that blue. So we just sort of take it for granted now. Oh yeah, she's in blue, but the pigments at the time, blue, were so hard to come by. So sometimes there's meaning that way. Me personally, I think I probably fall a little bit more in that kind of number one order, balance, those sorts of things. I think a lot about the color wheel when I'm doing it. Sometimes there is meaning, like in the, sometimes I'll use color to really move the eye, especially in the Mary Magdalene painting, really, there's a lot of blues and browns and whites, except around red. And she's often depicted with red, but he uses kind of red as I really wanted to focus on her face and her reaction and her response to the invitation of Christ. And so that's kind of what I try to use those colors. Sometimes they don't necessarily have a deep meaning for me, but I'll really use them to kind of move the eye, to direct the viewer into the artwork so that hopefully I'm kind of getting at that shared meaning. I really want to communicate when I make something. And I want to make sure that the viewer is not just like, well, I don't get it, or, that sort of a thing. Does that help some? Great question. Okay. We'll show some artwork now. Okay. This is, exactly as you can see, a brick and a Mylar balloon. Like, why on earth did he make that? I love this tension between kind of the weighted and the weightless, and the kind of thin, nice little ribbon that we all know. We can almost feel that between your fingers right now if you were to think about it. And this almost as though could there be this moment where there was a slight lift, where kind of gravity does not win out in this, and just a little bit of tug. And then it's actually called Lift. That's the name of the painting. And then this is a modern day take on the conversion of St. Paul that I did. I know. It looks like a drunk falling out of a car. That's what I get a lot. So I get all the time. But no, what's it mean to take a narrative that we know and make it kind of accessible, or make it just kind of work for our moment. Another question, please, or a thought. Yes, right here.
Not trying to be argument.
Please. No, I want it. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Something that I struggle with, especially with little kids, is like the idea that whenever they show a drawing or a painting, that like the words that people normally say is like, this is the most beautiful thing I've seen. And perhaps it's struggle with hyperbole, but just I would like to say something that would be truthful, like in the sense of, it looks like you worked really hard on this, or it means a lot that you gave me this, but how you as a parent that your daughter has given you stuff, do you truly believe that that's the most beautiful thing you've seen, or like?
Sure. So, great question. She was like, hey, I'll be honest. It's all the little things that your kid gives you. Like, do you really delight in all of them? Look, when you have kids, you're gonna need like a box and a drawer for all the little things they make and give you, because it's constant. You're like, oh God, thank you. Oh, this is so nice. So as she was saying, it's like, doesn't that feel kind of disingenuous to them? Great question, and I love these sort of questions, because you're absolutely right. It is kind of like, oh, wow, this is great. Now, but if I spend a little bit of time with the painting that I shared tonight, we did make that together in my home studio at the time, which I don't work out of home anymore. I've got a one-way studio, so that is a little kind of a cherished moment. Because I had a home studio, I was able to be home with the kids, with my wife, for their younger years. And so I treasure that time. And I did really love that painting. When she finished it, I looked at it and I was like, man, I love these colors together. And I think there was a genuine like appreciation. And so I wasn't lying on this one, but there are many times that my daughter gives me things that I'm like, oh, this is so great. Oh, you did a really good job on this. So I'm part of the problem. According to your, I'm part of the problem. However, think about just that fact that she is constantly creating and constantly giving. That's what kids want to do, right? I mean, that is just that beautiful piece of that little God image just absolutely stamped on her to just do it over and over and over again. Dad, I want you to have this. Dad, I want you to have this. That's beautiful. That makes me a little emotional. So, and maybe it's finding the beauty there, right? And so maybe there's not an aesthetic like, oh wow, this is an amazing drawing or painting, but it's like, wow, here is God's Spirit, completely, not self-conscious at all, just like giving over and over again. Great question. I need another question like that. That was beautiful. Yes, she's got one.
Do you find how easy is it for you to create, especially to continuously create, on a daily basis? Do you find that difficult, or do you have that constant inspiration, or do you have to kind of wait for that overflow of the heart to actually be able to create something new?
All right, here's a really unsatisfying answer. Great question. How often do I really feel like it? And when do I create? When I feel like it, or do I create when, just even when I don't? I do it even when I don't. I do it all the time, and sometimes it is an absolute joy. Today was a joy. I was working on the sky for a landscape commission, and I was just really enjoying painting the clouds, and I was thinking, man, as a Kansan, man, I can do some clouds, and that's what I know. And I was working on some clouds, and I really felt that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make this cloud very luminous, and I can't wait to really get this done, and the whole thing's gonna glow. And it was great. I, just like all of you, am subject to the fall, and so there are times where, I just wake up and you know what? I hate everything, and I'm really upset about it, and I don't want to do anything. Now here's where the thing comes in. It's I've been a professional artist for 11 years. It is our sole source of income, so it can be very motivating to go into the studio each day when it's it's do or die, so that really helps a lot. Now at the same time, it's just thorns and thistles, right? One of our promises is that we would do, after the fall, we would do work, and sometimes it would produce fruit, and we'd be satisfied. And I think that's still a little piece of paradise that was still present. It's satisfying sometimes, and other times it's not. It doesn't work. Last year, for instance, I spent almost 3 to 4 months on one show, and I made artwork for it. I was ready to go, and did the show, and literally goose egged, right? And you realize suddenly, whoa, I was kind of expecting to redeem that time, and it didn't happen. And so, thorns and thistles is just kind of part of it at times, but it is still great. What a great privilege to be able to do it, and to be able to work with my good friends, in the studio. It's great. So, great question. All right, more art. Good. Okay, that was good. Okay, this is the painting, More the Material over here. There's actually kind of commentary on materialism as a worldview. That if we're really just matter, then there's nothing really separating us from all the other things in the world. So he's sort of being gathered up, being brought up out of this pile of just kind of refuse, and even some of the best things in the world, like art. So you can this is actually a cast of David's eye, but some of it is just waste. But this is kind of drawing man up back to man's dignity, and so you can kind of imagine the two girls as little angels, which my good friend here knows them very well. So as he's her dad, which is great. And there's a moment where I was like, "Hey, do you think the girls would want to be in a painting?" I was like, "Oh, sure." So it was awesome. But that painting went to the Portrait Society, and it got in their kind of highest honor. It was really, we were this close. Didn't quite make it, but it was awesome. That all kind of happened during COVID, which was wild. I won't go into it. But so this is one of my proteges. She she began painting with me when she was 16. Her mom approached me, saw my work at Ottoman Art, and was like, hey, my daughter loves painting and would love to study with you. So, we had her over for dinner, family, and we just started, working out of the studio. And like, she kind of wore some of these dresses. So this was my goodbye painting, because I was like, oh, she's going out into the world and she's gonna go get her art history degree, and I'm saying goodbye. And so like that's why all these elements are like this kind of turning, kind of the wash kind of blowing away. Very, very Kansas-y. There's all these elements of like travel, the road, and the empty nest. That was one of those softball pitches, right? But again, sometimes if I really want people to know, like, hey, this is about kind of loss in a way, but also grieving. This was kind of one of my ways to grieve. It was like, I'm really sad, because I also knew she was kind of giving a painting a little bit after kind of all. She was really good, and she still paints. Thank God. If you're watching, you still paint. You're awesome. I love you. And so, but there was a little bit of like just sadness. Like, oh, I thought you were, I thought you were the one. I thought you were gonna, take up the mantle, and so there's a little bit of kind of that, and hopefully some of those things kind of come through in the work. Okay, those are those two. But surely somebody has another question. Yes.
Not really a question, but more something I was thinking about towards the end. When you're talking about the kind of the intent of the artist, and is it more about like what I have to say versus participation in creation? My mind was drawn to actually the scripture passage I was praying with recently. It's in Matthew 15 when Jesus talks about like what defiles, and it's what comes from the mouth is what defiles, because that passes through the stomach and through the heart. So it's what comes from the heart. And I was just thinking, like, because I've done some like very minor delving into like art and modern art. Sometimes some of the more modern artists, what I get at least is they are painting something about maybe a social injustice or something, but it's like, I have to be the one to say this, and it's more kind of like exalting themselves, as like I'm the one bringing this to light, and I just kind of saw a parallel between that bit of scripture and maybe the intent of artistry.
That's great. So we see your comment about like, we see a lot of like virtue signaling, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I gotta make an artwork about this so that people know where I stand on it, or I tell them what, let them know what, that's great. Someone else have something? Yeah, blue shirt.
Do you mind if I ask you a tough question?
Tough question?
Yeah.
But not, please answer, I'll answer it best as I can. Yeah.
Okay. So, there's the paintings in the Sistine Chapel, and as you all probably know, it's like a bunch of naked people and all that.
Yeah, I put a naked person in here. Did you see that? Yeah. Okay. Just saying.
And I just want to throw out a disclaimer, like there's nothing doctrinal that we have to believe concerning the paintings in the chapel itself. Like there's no catechism teaching that says like these paintings are modest or like okay to draw or whatever. So we can have like disagreements on this.
Sure.
Just a preface. But I like, if I'm going to be real with you, I look at the Sistine Chapel and I'm like, wow, this is pornographic images in a chapel. Like, I'm concerned, I'm offended, I do not like it in the least. What would you kind of say to someone like me who's struggling to see kind of the beauty that's trying to be represented in that?
So great question. What about all that nudity in art, and especially in sacred art, right? All these churches. What about that? Why did I show Adam's thing here tonight? Why? Why was that necessary?
The idea behind, so you think about the Sistine Chapel, right? And the Sistine Chapel, and you can correct me because I'm not like super familiar, I've never been there either, but the idea of naked people in a church, the question should be what is trying to be conveyed, right? And so the Last Judgment, I know at least that this scene is from the Last Judgment. So the idea that these people are portrayed naked is the idea of what would be called an eschatological reality, right? So the end of time. At the end of time, we'll all be naked. And maybe in the new earth as well. Okay, not sure, but probably. because we will be given that the beatific vision where we don't only see God for all of eternity perfectly, but we also see each other perfectly, naked again. Okay. Now, don't hold me to that. Nowhere does it say everyone's going to be not just perfected, but naked and whatever and sculpted. That's not the point. The point is context. Context is really important whenever it comes to these depictions, right? Mary breastfeeding. That was a real event in time. Is she? I don't think we've ever depicted her just naked for the sake of, oh, she's standing like David, right? She's depicted breastfeeding. You can see her breast because she probably did that in time, right? The creation of Adam, which we just saw as well, naked, right? He was in time, created. We want to say, maybe even then, it's an eschatological reality that God made a man, right? The first man. You see everything about this man as he is. He didn't create him with clothes, right? So logical thinking as well is really important, right? I think about Christ on the cross, right? He was crucified naked, right? We do give some dignity. So there is room for that prudential judgment to be made. However, there are paintings of Christ naked on the cross. And glory to God, right? There's due reverence to that. And when we look at it, gosh, like it actually is going to strike you more because you have a more realistic expression of the greatest sacrifice, which I don't have to explain to you, that has ever been made, right? In history, again, in time, right? And so that's something to consider as well. That generally speaking, when you think about sacred art, right, it's gonna be, there's that realism, right? Like you've never seen in a church, right? I guess I need to make that disclaimer. In a church, you won't ever see naked men at the Last Supper, right? Or I can continue with examples like that, right? Because there's also that like realism that's incorporated, that's intended, that ought to give us an opportunity to understand what was actually happening in time, right? Now with eschatological truths about eternity, there's room for that because it's these paintings, they convey eternal truths and really spiritual truths. That's what I'm trying to say. I hope that helps.
I still don't buy it, but I appreciate it.
Okay,
Whoa, I'm so surprised.
That's why he's the theologian and I'm the artist. Man, yeah, thanks, Jose. That was great. Right here, black shirt.
Just kind of do a brief so not to say whether it's right or wrong in terms of paintings or whatever, but something we also have to remind ourselves of is nudity doesn't automatically mean sexual or pornographic. And that's difficult if most of what we see with nudity, whether it be a TV show or whatever, is portrayed in a sexual manner. But if you think about Mary breastfeeding Jesus, the beauty is in the motherhood, that you can be, hopefully, because if you have a family and your spouse is breastfeeding, that's not a sexual moment. It's a caring and providing, kind of thing, and kind of a normal, just family thing. So trying to at times separate, again, like contextual, nudity isn't always sexual in nature. But that's also me not making a stance on whatever paintings, because I don't really know. But
Great point. I saw another hand over here. Yes.
Going in a completely different direction.
Thank you.
How do you feel about Mark Rothko, especially the color fields? Do you find beauty in art in that form?
I've been to the Rothko Chapel in Houston. Have you been there?
I'm from Houston.
So you're from Houston, yeah. So that's a really cool area, the Manil Collection and the Rothko Chapel. That whole area, I love that area. So I think it, sitting in the Rothko Chapel and like contemplating, like having like, I think there's value there. I think there can be beauty there. And because of I think they're interesting in that the way that, if you look at them for a long time, the purpose is to kind of let your eye, your eye gets, your brain only gets tired, right? It's like, okay, I've seen the same thing over and over and over again, and it sort of kind of turns off, but then those colors start to do some interesting things. So I think there is some interest, I think, in the color, like playing, God created things as we see them, the color. So I find value there. I don't know, again, not that I don't know his motivations exactly, but I do think he was still trying to create some sort of beauty. I don't believe, just from the artwork, I sense that there's still like an appreciation for color and visual field, and like, I still feel like there's something, again, if I kind of ask some of the questions that I posited earlier, I feel a sense of like genuineness, and you're like, hey, how do you exactly pin that down? I was like, I don't. But I do feel like some genuineness in those paintings. For some reason, and maybe it's just because I'm kind of a color guy. I do really love color as a painter, and so I can appreciate those works. So great question, Rothko. Get to Houston, go to the, you may, if you go to the Rothko Chapel in Houston, you may get in there and you'll be like, this is a lot of gray. A lot of green, a lot of purple, but the paintings are like massive, and I think that's the other thing that maybe they do, especially like in the chapel, is there is scale, and the scale itself has some sense of awe to it, which is fast, which is in its own right, like there's a wow factor in just scale. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
My first experience with Rothko was actually at the Nelson Atkins in Kansas City, and I think it's far less impactful when it's just in a museum with standard museum lighting compared to so many of the other artworks you'd see in a museum. It feels more like it's a cross between the art and the architecture for it to really have impact and meaning like it does at the chapel in Houston.
That's great. So that's kind of another context thing, right? Changes the way you view an artwork. And that's one of the things I love is I love knowing where the artwork's going to go. Sometimes when I'm making it, so especially if I'm working on like the Keep and Chapel, or I did a series, the 5 Joyful Mysteries for someone's home, and like kind of the way we set it up, they sort of entwined kind of the entrance area to their home. They did this beautiful ceiling treatment and the artwork set up, and like knowing how it was gonna be and be displayed, and kind of how high the ceiling was, and all those parts. You can really kind of think about that. And so, while I don't know my art history enough to know like what his thoughts were on the chapel, if that was like an intentional build for those to kind of exist in there, I think those context things are really fascinating. When you know where it's going to go. It's a great question. All right, more art. This is the last slide here. But if you've not been to Cape Pen, should get to Cape Pen at some point.
Go Crusaders.
Go Crusaders. This is exciting. This remodel happened now. It's been over a year. But I got to do these 2 panels. They are these are life-size saints depicted. So each painting is about 9.5 feet to 10 feet tall there. Exciting thing is there is another one of these arches here, like if we just continued this wall here, and then another one here, the same on the other side too. So there's 4 more, and I'm really excited. I'm starting to work on panel number 3, which will actually go to the left on this side. So again, this is one of those things where it's like knowing first and foremost that the light comes from the center. So everything is illumined from the center. So I'm always going to directionally set up the light on all the panels as though illumined by Christ. And so these again, but I know where it's going to go. I know how it's going to interact with the space, and so that really allows for just so much creativity. That's one of my favorite things. Got a hand here, yeah.
Is it true that one of the models was Father Chad Arnold?
Because I think he's sitting in the bottom left corner.
No, you got it.
Okay.
I will add after you.
That's right. You need to stay close so I can
Can you
keep
tell them the cannonball thing?
the cannonball thing. The cannonball.
Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yes. Okay. Sorry. I was like, for a second there, I was like, I did a cannonball in here. I got really confused. Okay. So as in making these, I wasn't Catholic yet, but I was studying the lives of the saints, and I just kind of sat with each of their lives. I can kind of study, think about their lives, think about what happened in their lives, and Saint Ignatius of Loyola, whoever he may be as a model, he was like a warrior, right? He was a fighter. He took a lot of pride in that, and he did a lot of other things. But all of a sudden, like his very identity as a fighter, as a warrior, was just shattered when his leg was shattered by a cannonball. And of course, then he's bedridden for months. I think almost a year or something like that. I think there was numerous times they had to kind of reset the bones, as I recall. And I just thought that like in that time, that was his moment of transformation. And so I was like, I want him on the ground. I want him on the ground, and I just want seated because that's where it happened. It happened in the quiet. It happened in those long days of suffering when everything that he was cast aside. He would never be able to be that anymore. So, don't all of us have those moments where it's like, we've got a dream of like, oh, I want life to be this way, and I've got a picture of it. Sometimes that just gets completely wiped out. And I pray to God for each of us, those moments happen in life that, you find yourself encountering him in a powerful way rather than, kind of turning the other direction. So.
Did you have a thought on it?
So as to who it may be, I will say this. These paintings will outlast all of us in this room. And someday, whoever it may or may not be, will no longer be on this earth. But yet somebody will still be able to kind of interact with it. So we see in a very limited timeline. You may see other people you recognize periodically in various paintings. It's kind of like this. I liken it unto like acting, right? The great actors are those who, when you watch the movie, you really get kind of caught up in the movie. Like they are the person in the movie, right? Even though you're like, okay, I know this is Johnny Depp, but he's really good as Captain Jack Sparrow. He's really the guy, or whatever, fill in the blank. And so good actors just have range, and they can play the part. So yes, you might see some recognizable people.
They look great.
You're great. Yes, please.
I was just at Blessed Sacrament. Did you also paint 2 paintings at the front of Blessed Sacrament?
Yes, yeah, those were just recently unveiled at Easter. Yes.
Who are they supposed to be? I was wondering.
Saint Aquinas and Pope Pius X. Saint Pope Pius X.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I just love knowing where it's going to go because it's like, those paintings I tried to make, because everything is really angular, and you go to Blessed Sacrament, there's really hard angles of like stone and granite and things, and I was like, oh well, these niches where there were already some flowers before, I was like, what if we just kind of imagined that sort of extended. So I tried to design it so that if you're coming down the main aisle, hopefully perspective-wise, and the way the light, again, emanating from Christ, comes down should illuminate each of those like in light. So you should watch the shadow and everything. And so probably one of the biggest compliments I received was like, people said, I feel like they've always been there. And I was like, all right, I will take that. Thank you. So yes, yeah, thanks. Yes, please.
So you said a quote at the very beginning. It was, beauty is my vocation. Is that JP2?
Yeah. I mean, more or less, yeah.
Yeah, beauty is my God-given vocation. And then you speak into how it is specifically your vocation, especially as an artist, painter. Where do you feel there is like a difference between when you're creating art like this versus art that's like more secular? Where do you feel like it aligns more vocationally with like your God-given?
I do, and so kind of when you see me out in the world and you're like, how come that guy isn't talking about the sacred art? And how come he's not like, wait, he was all here and he was saying all this stuff, but now he's making a painting of a pillow, which I do have one. He's the painting of a pillow. Like, how is that even, a thing? Like, how is that even consistent? And that is a great question. I do think levity is really important. So there'll be a lot of things that I paint just because I sort of enjoy it, like a sleeve of Ritz crackers, and it's funny because what's that? Cheese, yeah, or whatever. Like, and part of me is like, I want to raise a dignity, and you're like, we want to raise the dignity of Ritz. I was like, well, I mean. We don't pause enough sometimes to like appreciate the things that are just sort of thrown away or quickly consumed. It was funny, I was actually at a show, and I was going to talk about the sleeve of Ritz more. A lady came up to me and she's like, did you also play the Eucharist game with, as kids with Ritz? And I was like, no, I didn't grow up Catholic. And she's like, oh, we used to, serve one another Ritz as though we were at Mass. And like, but it's like, so she connects with this, and I know that sounds silly, but like, she really connected with it, got great joy out of it. She could also see the rest of my artwork. She knew my heart. She knew the heart behind it was also joy. Like, the aesthetic is kind of the Dutch Baroque, which we talked about, which naturally just brings, like, kind of raises a dignity to a thing, and just it's very self. And so I think the world, so I was in, maybe a little bit of background, I was in full-time ministry. I actually helped plant a church on the west side, Westridge Community Church, in 2012, with who's kind of still my spiritual advisor, Dave Mitchell. And I kind of thought full-time ministry was my thing. That's what I was going to go in and do. And then I had a couple of friends who are still very dear friends tell me, hey, you can do some things that people can't do. Like, why are you doing this? And these are good Christian friends. And so they were very adamant on, you need to be making art. And those are voices that I trust. And really, guys, you gotta have those voices you trust around you that are willing to just say, hey, you're like, you might be doing something that's good. Ministry, it's good. But they're actually seeing kind of the gift set and encouraging me in a right direction. And so when I step out and I do art fairs and things of that nature, like, I get to take this stuff to kind of the average person. There will be 20, sometimes over 100,000 people. Sometimes they come through these art fairs when I go to other cities. I go to Houston a lot. That's why I know so much about Houston. And people walk by and they'll see the work and they'll just like, wow, wow. I didn't expect to see this here. Like, did people still do this? And it's just, for them, it is this like little bit of beauty, this kind of moment of this arresting kind of moment, which they probably don't get very often. They probably don't get to interact with it. They're probably not stepping into a church ever, but then I kind of view it as this place where I talked about art being accessible. My tent is accessible. People will come into the tent because they want to see these paintings, and I get to talk with them, and we get to sometimes talk about some very deep matters. Sometimes maybe just they saw something beautiful that day, but I have to trust God enough in that moment that beauty was enough of that transcendental, that it was, it talked to them. I hope it wounded them, in the way that I talked about tonight. Does that kind of answer your question, or did I bounce around too much?
No, I like that. It's actually, I was thinking of a question before that as well. Speaking into, I would just say, like, I guess explicitly as like a man, there's like a unique desire, or I guess more of an intensity of desire towards like having something to fight for. And I guess when it comes to like the sacred art versus kind of a more secular sense of where you probably enter into more often is that secular world. It sounds like. Where do you feel like your desire, your God-given capacity for fighting for something weaves into like your desire to like fight for those transcendentals, the good, the true, but especially the beautiful?
So I think that was kind of a question. I might have gotten lost a little bit.
I do that a lot.
That's on me. I was grooving out a little to music. So this is where I'll come back to Jesus. Jesus was so good at like giving people exactly what they could understand, right? Just for some, they walked away, right? Like they were the seed that fell along the stony places, and Satan came and took it up. But for those 25%, fell in good soil. So I think Jesus was always like just a master. I think we just don't think about Jesus as like really smart, and like and the smartest guy ever, and like we just don't think about like how well he communicated, so that for those who had eyes, so they could see. For those who could hear it, they heard. And he was a master of just kind of winnowing out and sharing just the right amount of information so that people could be like, wait, that is the divine. I just had a divine reality from what you just said, and I get it. And so I always want to try to somehow do that out in the world for those who can, take it. So like I'll do these stacks of bricks. Yes, it's just 5 bricks, but I do them over and over again. People will respond to them. So I'll call them things like not one left on another, or I'll call them like Babel, or I'll call there's various things that are like they're so under the radar. People are just like, oh, these bricks are awesome, but it's like, well, it can be about so much more. And so these just little hints along the way to kind of, I hope, I don't know, just catch a few people here and there in what I'm doing. And so I don't want to ever fall into the complete, like, I want to have enough of a foot in the just contemporary art world that it's like, oh yeah, we want that guy here. Or no, we don't want that guy here. He's like a Christian artist and everything he does. I get that enough, to be honest. There's a group of artists here in town. They're like, oh yeah, he's that Christian artist guy. I feel like I barely sort of do it sometimes, but so I'm always trying to kind of walk a little bit that line, because maybe, just maybe, beauty will break through in those moments. So I hope. Great question. Yeah. Let's see. You guys went before. Is there somebody who? No offense, but I was going to see if there's someone else who had a question. Yes. Yeah. Did you go before?
No.
Okay. All right. That was it. Okay. Wait.
We kind of
Wow. That's impressive.
We're not identical, by the way.
Okay. Please. Yes.
Yeah. How do you ask for the grace to stay humble when taking ownership in your artwork? And since it's your way to make an income and provide for your family, how do you think your life would have been different if you didn't find your vocation in beauty and converting to Catholicism?
So how do I remain humble, kind of throughout this? I keep thinking how insanely crazy it is that I even get to do this at all. So if you and I sat down for another hour and I could just tell you the story, you know, you'd be like, man, how did you ever get here? I don't know, because I didn't really apply my life to anything. I would have rather played Nintendo than do just about anything else, right? I mean, my heart was like so lukewarm. Like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. I grew up in the Baptist church, and yeah, so like I can't tell you how far away I was from anything of value, and yet I'm just like, God made all these moments, and I could just align them out. I'm not going to do it for time's sake, but like my instructor saw my artwork in college. She's like, you have the ability to capture light, and in a way that I don't see very often. And I was like, I do, but that was just like, a sort of an initial invitation. We used to walk around, and she would jokingly, but it was meaningful to me, she'd be like, oh, master of light, and so like, how do you not become that person when they're just being generous with their words, and being generous with their words, right? We were talking about it with our kids, like being generous with their words. I don't know, she probably didn't think I was really all that, but I felt like there was something significant there. So now the times that has happened, and every time that it's happened, it's basically came in a moment where I tried to take another path. I tried to, I moved to Lawrence. I quit college, quit art school. I moved to Lawrence, got in a hasty marriage, played in a band for like 2 years, didn't touch painting, got a divorce, imagine that, and I ended up back in Wichita, Kansas. So, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just finish my art degree. That's what I'm closest to doing. So there's that level of just aimlessness. But when I came back, I started making work. And then the instructor was like, you really need to take this, you need to do this thing in Italy. You need to go there and study. It's like, all right, well, I don't have any money. Okay, apply for this grant. Okay, never done that before. I got the grant, got to go. There I met a guy, owned a gallery in Ireland, and he's like, I love your work. You're coming to Ireland. So how do you not like realize I had nothing to do with it? Over and over and over again. I was invited repeatedly, and that is humbling every time when I think about it, because I know how many people try really hard, and I was just an idiot. I was a dumb kid, and I didn't try, and yet God was like, I'm going to use you because I'm going to use you. And that's how I just come back to that story over and over again. I don't deserve this. So that's a great question.
All right, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you.